So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you the statute and I'm going to break it down for you. And, many people have gone over this. We've talked about seditious conspiracy. I have talked about seditious conspiracy for well over 2 years now. Most people have talked about seditious conspiracy from the time that Stewart Rhodes was indicted for seditious conspiracy, and then he was convicted of seditious conspiracy, mind you, independent of Donald Trump. And now the Proud Boys are going on the seditious conspiracy trial, independent of Donald Trump. It's important to understand that these are separate cases from the seditious conspiracy case against Donald Trump. And that's because their conduct and their planning, the Oathkeepers and the Proud Boys, their actions amounted to, independent of any meeting of the mind with Donald Trump, rose to the level of seditious conspiracy within their organizations, where there were definitely more than two people who were agreeing to commit an offense, an illegal act. So with that, I will read the statute. If two or more persons in any state or territory or in any place subject to the jurisdiction of the United States conspire to overthrow, put down, or to destroy by force the government of the United States, or to levy war against them, or to oppose by force the authority thereof, or by force to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States, or by force to seize, take, or possess any property of the United States contrary to the authority thereof, they shall be each fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. Now, here we have conspired to overthrow, comma. And now I'm going to break it down where I'm going to add conspire to each of the subsections of this statute and draw it out for you so you understand. The statute reads that if two or more people conspire to overthrow, conspire to put down, or conspire to destroy by force the government of the United States, or conspire to levy war against them, or conspire to by force to oppose by force the authority thereof, or conspire by force to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States, or by force, or conspire to by force to seize, take, or possess any property of the United States contrary to the authority thereof, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. So each of those sections, conspiring to overthrow, conspiring to put down, conspiring to destroy by force the government of the United States, conspiring to levy war against them, conspiring to oppose by force the authority thereof, conspiring to by force to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States, or conspire to by force seize, take, or possess any property of the United States. Conspire to all of these things separately. A defendant in this, under the statute, does not have to have all of these requirements simply because the statute reads or instead of and in each of those, after each of those commas. Okay, so this, for somebody to satisfy the statute enough to be held accountable under it, they have to conspire to overthrow, conspire to put down, conspire to destroy by force the government of the United States, conspire to levy war against the United States. And now I'm going to get to the parts that are pertinent. or to oppose by force the authority thereof. Donald Trump conspired with more than one person to oppose by force the authority of the United States. And by force, meaning he hurled an insurrection at Congress when they were meeting in a joint session of Congress to certify the votes that would have ensured continuity of government for our country and our republic. To conspire by force to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States. By conspiring to defraud the Electoral Count Act, by conspiring to hinder or delay, which they did for over 3 hours, any law of the United States, the law being the Electoral Count Act, Donald Trump conspired with several other people to, by force, prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States. Or conspired to, by force, seize, take, or possess any property of the United States. For the 3 hours that the joint session of Congress was delayed and hindered, it was done so by force, by the force of Donald Trump's insurrection, by the force of the people who have testified in their own criminal trials that they have followed Donald Trump's orders and taken the Capitol by force. So much so that after Donald Trump sent out that video of retreating at 4:17, that they left the Capitol minutes after that. It wasn't a contemplation. It wasn't a debate. It wasn't a majority win sort of voting that happened in the rotunda after Donald Trump made that announcement. They left. They explicitly said that this is what our commander-in-chief has ordered. It may have seemed like free speech and bravado before, but when those words were uttered, our commander-in-chief ordered us to be here. Our commander-in-chief told us to leave, and that's why we left. Stephen Ayers said that. Several of the defendants said that. Now that the Proud Boys seditious conspiracy trial is going on, they are saying that they followed orders of Donald Trump. And that shows the ordering doesn't show a meeting of the mind. You can order somebody who is far enough attenuated to do that. It is the links between, it is the connection, the conspiracy. In order for you to have a conspiracy, there has to be a meeting of the mind. There has to be an agreement between two or more people to commit an illegal act. So in order for the conspiracy part of the crime to attach to Donald Trump, if he were to be part of either the Oathkeepers or the Proud Boys seditious conspiracy trial, then the government would have had to prove that there was an agreement between Stewart Rhodes and there was an agreement between Donald Trump. And I believe that's the most difficult part for them to prove. The agreements that happened between Donald Trump and Roger Stone and Alex Jones and Mark Meadows, these agreements are far more provable. How they relate to the insurrection is provable through the links in the January 6th report that links Donald Trump to every subgroup that facilitated, that aided and abetted Donald Trump's plan to overthrow the government. Because the end illegal act, the final illegal act, the agreement's goal, the final goal was to overthrow the government of the United States, or to destroy, put down, and overthrow the government of the United States. Why? Because in the United States, when there is an election and there is a winner in the election, they are the rightful office holders for the office for which they ran and won. If Donald Trump wanted to not allow that to happen, and he used force through the insurrection and other means through coercion, through blackmailing, through targeting. He employed those other means to the end goal of overthrowing, putting down the government of the United States. The statute of seditious conspiracy reads, conspire to overthrow, to put down, or to destroy by force the government of the United States. So here, in each of the subsections, there's also that word or, which means that Donald Trump didn't have to conspire to overthrow and put down and destroy by force the government of the United States. He had to conspire to overthrow or conspire to put down or conspire to destroy. So the statute of seditious conspiracy breaks it down as specifically as it can. What are the different things somebody can do in order to be liable under this statute? And Donald Trump did more than one thing. The points that Jack Smith has to prove is that there was an agreement between Donald Trump and the other people who aided him. The end goal being Donald Trump would remain in power. Donald Trump remaining in power is overthrowing the government of the United States by force. Why? Because the election showed that he lost. He lost the election. He went to defraud the Electoral Count Act with the end goal of overthrowing the government of the United States. How? Because he wanted to grab power against the will of the voters. And that would have been an illegal act in defiance of the Electoral Count Act. That would have been a violation of the Electoral Count Act. That would have been a violation of conspiracy to defraud the United States. It would have also been a violation under 18 U.S.C. 2384 to seditiously conspire to overthrow the government of the United States by opposing by force the United States authority, and by force conspiring to prevent by force, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States, being the Electoral Count Act. So, if the statute itself is not very long, you can read it, but many people might think that, you have to do all of these things to prove that somebody committed seditious conspiracy. No, you don't. You have to prove certain parts of it. And that's why the statute has or, the word or. It's very important. Little words like shall and or and. These things are actually very important in law because they mean the difference between whether the prosecution, in this case, criminal cases, has to prove all of what the statute is saying or just some parts of what the statute is saying. If two or more persons, so the minimum requirement is just two people or more, there can be more, in any state or territory, anywhere in the United States, or anywhere subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, could be a military base somewhere, conspires to overthrow. Conspire meaning has an agreement between two or more people to commit an illegal act along with an intent to achieve the agreement's final goal. So the overt act doesn't have to be illegal, but most of the times it happens to be illegal, right? Because defrauding the electoral vote count, conspiring to defraud the electoral vote count is sort of, is sort of an overthrowing mechanism that's built into, it's a crime inside another crime, inside another crime. It's like the Russian nesting doll of crimes. I've said this many times before. Seditious conspiracy is the Russian nesting doll of crimes. or it's the it's the turducken of crimes. It's one crime on top of another crime on top of another crime, and to break through those layers, the burden of proof lies with the government. Conspires to overthrow or put down or destroy by force, or levy war against, or to oppose by force, or by force prevent, hinder, or delay, or by force seize or take or possess, or, and at the end it says, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned. So, that's the punishment, statutory punishment part of it, for 20 years or no more than 20 years or both. So I want you to, take the time to read the statute if you wish. If you have any questions about the statute, I would be more than happy to answer it. There are many legal scholars who are coming out and explaining the statute. I want people to understand that it is a tall order to get the statute and to meet the elements of the statute. But because the statute breaks it down in such a specific manner, it gives the government the opportunity to pick parts of the statute that applies to a set of acts that would fall within this particular criminal conduct of seditious conspiracy. And I believe, this is what I believe, I'll end with this. The January 6th committee referred Donald Trump and others for 4 principal crimes. 1 was obstruction, 2 conspiracy statutes, and incitement and rebellion. Each of those statutes falls somewhere within the seditious conspiracy statute violations. I believe that the obstruction element in seditious conspiracy, where it says by force prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of the United States, or the conspiracy element of seditious conspiracy, conspire to overthrow, put down, or destroy, or to oppose by force, or to prevent, hinder, or delay. So I believe that the obstruction and the conspiracy statutes that the January 6th committee picked were specific, far more specific statutes of conspiracy and obstruction. And those illegal conducts fall within the different illegal conducts that qualify as satisfying the elements of the seditious conspiracy statute elements and standards. I don't want you to get too confused, because it's just crime inside crime inside crime inside crime. But I want you to appreciate how complicated it would be for a prosecutor to parse through all of this, especially since the people closest to Donald Trump have stonewalled the January 6th committee. I don't believe they have the power or the balls to stonewall the Department of Justice. And that's why Donald Trump is coming out and attacking Jack Smith and his family, because that's the only thing Donald Trump can do right now. These people are being compelled to testimony by a grand jury. And that, I believe, will bring up information that will link Donald Trump with the agreement element that is required in conspiracy statutes, that he agreed with these people. There was a meeting of the minds, that there was an understanding between Mark Meadows and Donald Trump of what was happening and what the end goal was, that there was an understanding between Roger Stone and Alex Jones, that there was an understanding between John Eastman and Donald Trump what was happening. And that's where John Eastman's corrupt state of mind will come into play, where he knew what he was doing was illegal. He kept flip-flopping. And then at the very end, he advocated for the illegal act, despite conceding in front of others namely Mike Pence's legal advisors, that his proposals would violate the Electoral Count Act. That was an overt statement he made in front of Mike Pence's lawyers, Donald Trump, Pat Cipollone, and others sitting in that room when he was proposing this preposterous idea of the fake elector scheme. And then he doubled down and he went forward with that illegal act. And later on, after the insurrection failed, he asked for a pardon. So Jack Smith would have to develop that information, because from our point of view, it's information that is credible because it was provided under oath by several people to the January 6th committee. But the January 6th committee's work was a fact-finding mission that was not prosecutorial in nature. It was an oversight mission of the first branch of our government. It wasn't a prosecutorial mission. It wasn't an investigative mission. It was an oversight mission. We have to understand the difference between the different branches of our government and the powers that they have. Article 1 branch of government doesn't have the power to investigate and prosecute and enforce the laws of the land. The DOJ has that power. So that's why the DOJ's grand jury subpoenas have a bigger bite to them, as opposed to the congressional subpoenas, which we saw really are kind of flimsy. And that's why the DOJ and Jack Smith have to comb through the information that the January 6th committee has provided and corroborate this information with each of these people who were willing witnesses, and then subpoena the ones who were unwilling to cooperate with the January 6th committee, in order to build the foundation to prove that there was an agreement between Donald Trump and these other people of the end goal, the criminal end goal to overthrow our government. And the overthrow of government, how? By him remaining in power, by Donald Trump remaining in power in defiance of the 2020 election and the will of the people.